Hi, everyone. So I'm glad you're here today because we have something special for you. So a couple weeks ago, you might have met this amazing person, but if you haven't, this is Sally Wright, one of my new best friends, and she is a grief and life coach. She empowers successful, busy women to navigate the emotional aftermath of losing a parent, is like her normal jam, without sacrificing their careers or their sense of purpose. And she blends practical tools, emotional wisdom, and deep spiritual insight to help high functioning women feel again, find their steady footing, and lead resilient lives. So, but we're not actually talking about that kind of grief today.
Not at all.
So, that's okay. There's a reason. There's actually a method to our madness. So, I just want to say that as somebody who has helped people as a career coach and particularly as a job search coach for 20 years, there are a lot of different losses that come in your career. And there are losses that happen during your career. And last time we talked really about what happens when you lose a job and you are stacking that in the same 12 months as losing a loved one. There's also loss of marriages through divorces. Well, today we're talking about how to say goodbye, but we're focusing on when you're saying goodbye at work. So just want to give you that heads up that that's where we're going today. And a lot of you have had to say goodbye at work lately. And sometimes it's your choice, and a lot of times it's not.
Yeah.
So I want to start by saying, first of all, welcome, Sally.
Thanks for having me. Love to be here.
We are so happy you're here. So, how did a grief coach get into a conversation about leaving jobs other than the fact that we're new best friends?
Yeah, other than the bestie part. So when I met you, Wendy, it was about 6 months after leaving a job that I loved and a job that I chose to leave. And so this was one of the very first conversations I had with you, was about leaving that job and sort of leaving a piece of me with it, which has been really hard. And so it's been interesting that you and others have reflected to me of how I'm going through my own grief process about leaving that job. And even though it was good and life-giving and necessary to leave, it also has been very hard. I mean, we're 18 months out and I still am like, oh, the things that could have been. And so it's only because really you and I, and you have with that career coaching mindset, and me with that sort of grief coaching, life coaching mindset, and also with my background as a pastor, that you and I just sort of all the rings converged into a beautiful Venn diagram where
My favorite things, Venn diagrams.
where I just thought there's a moment, a beautiful moment here where we can talk about grief that no one talks about, which is the grief of leaving a job and leaving not just a job and a role, but people and institutions that we love and that we've come to love, even though it's a good thing that we leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it
Yeah.
really is. Whether you're choosing to leave or not,
Right.
Whether you are the boss of people or not, you're leaving behind relationships. And even if there's part of that job that you are not going to miss, there are still parts of that job you are going to miss. The part of yourself that liked that job and the humans you cared about at that job. So
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
Oh, it's so big and so huge. And I don't hear many people talking about this aspect of leaving jobs. There's sort of a how to leave well as a leader and sort of how to leave well and not burn bridges, but not this added layer of what does it mean to leave people and even routines that you love and that meant something to you, and then turn around and do it again in a different setting with new people and with new routines and a new job and new expectations. This sense of leaving something and turning to another is huge.
It really is. It really is. So let's think about, and it's so funny because I have a whole training on what happens, what you should do when you're laid off. And it's like, here are the things. And it's like, first of all, deal with the legal stuff, the legal and financial. And then it's give yourself a little space to grieve. And then it's make sure you've connected on LinkedIn with all the people you worked with, all the clients you have, all that. That's like my quick list. I think that from this emotional side of things, what are the four questions? What are the four questions you could ask yourself as you're considering leaving a position, or if you've already decided, what are the questions you need to think about as you're planning how you're going to handle this?
Yes. So there are four questions that I've come up with for our conversation today, and I'll get to those in just a second. But I want to sort of hop in on what you just said, Wendy, on your training, is
Oh,
that moment of giving yourself space is a
yes.
beautiful thing. But what do you do with that space? Like, I kind of wish someone had told me, okay, now you've left this job. Here's what you need to do to heal, to recover, to, all these things that
Oh,
needed to
yes.
happen.
So give me some intel on what that might look like for people. Oh, grief and
Yeah.
life coach and former pastor. When I tell them to give themselves space, what are some things they might want to consider for that time?
Yeah, well, so I'll tell you what ended up working for me before we
Okay.
get to those four questions.
Yes.
When I was leaving the job that I loved so much, but became very clear that I needed to leave. I had with me a psychiatrist on board as a part of my team. I had my counselor, my therapist as a part of my team, and I actually had a coach. And it was all three of those that I met with on our regular schedule, whatever that looked like for that professional, as well as the eating well, the connecting with my family, connecting with my friends, like all of these seemingly insignificant things. Like, of course, you're going to connect with your friends and family. And yet, being really explicit about continuing to build your network and continuing to reach out to the people who matter and who mean something to you. Because it had been years since I had had lunch with some people that I considered some really deep, close friends, but I just hadn't been able to do anything. And so it took me a while to sort of get the confidence to turn back around and say, oh, yeah, I love these people. I want to have lunch with them and connect with them again. So I think sometimes even being really explicit about these sort of social emotional things can be really helpful, especially given if you left under any type of duress, if you left under any type of being let go or fired,
Yeah.
any sort of sense of something that can really knock your self-esteem in a way. Like, yeah, do the legal practical things. Yes, do the LinkedIn things. But what does it look like to sort of turn back inward a little bit and say,
Yes.
oh gosh, what do I need? And
Yeah.
it's not that sort of self-care of let's get pedicures and manicures and massages and things. Yes, that can be a thing.
That's lovely if you've got the time and the budget, but
Right. But that sense of what does it mean to be who you are and how to do that.
yeah,
Yeah,
reconnecting with who you are is an interesting one. But yeah,
yeah,
I love that. I will tell you that a lot of the people I work with, there is either a psychiatrist or a therapist behind the scenes a lot of the time. And that's great. I can focus on what they need to do for their job search in a context of understanding emotional state stuff. And
yeah.
somebody else is handling the what do we do about that clinically,
Yes,
or behaviorally, depending on whether it's one of my ADHD people or
of
whatever. But
course.
but um, but that's actually really huge because nothing happens in a vacuum.
Right.
And that's absolutely awesome. No, I love that, and I think we need to talk more about that when we talk about what does space look like.
Yeah.
Um and in my program, I have ways I find out what people's space looks like and the things that they love to do and the people they love to be with that they don't always get enough time to do in the job. And
Yeah.
that's why that's exactly the
Yeah.
thing that you want to spend some time on, um uh in in that giving yourself space.
Right. And in some ways it looks different for everyone, but I think there's some really major key things of what that looks like when we're having to leave a position. Um, yeah. So are shall I get to the 4
Let's get to
questions
the
that we've
4.
been teasing for 10 minutes now?
Yes, I think we've done enough teasing. Are you all ready for the 4? I think you are. Okay, go for
Okay,
it.
so in some ways, I wish I'd had these 2 years ago because I think it would have dictated how I left, when I left, and all these things a little bit differently. Okay, so the first one is what's driving the departure? And sometimes we have control over the departure and sometimes we don't. But it's that sense of am I leaving or am I leaning forward? That sense of are you escaping? Is it escapism that's happening? Or is it this sort of proactive next step? And I think that nuance even applies to when you're let go. Because again, sometimes it's out of our control, sometimes it's in our control. But even that sense of taking it proactively is just a very different energy than that energy of escaping, which sometimes we desperately have to do. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But just even feeling those different energies and understanding intentionally what's driving this can really help you as you are looking to leave and then
Love
stepping into
that.
what is new.
I love that.
Um, and in fact, in doing research for this, I discovered that 48% of professionals later regret leaving too quickly. And so I think no matter what position you are, whether you're an executive or not, I think even just taking that moment to reflect and say, am I leaving too quickly? Do I need to give it a little bit more time? Do I need to come up with a succession plan? What does that look like and mean? And I know that these are sort of controversial in a way. You can't always have these conversations, but you can have them with you. You
Yeah,
can be intentional about them.
you
So
can.
that was number one. What's driving this departure?
And I jump in
Yeah.
and say that so people who know me really well know that I was a fintech startup exec, and at 18 months after our acquisition, it was time for me to leave. And we really had some time to plan that departure and figure out who of my direct reports were getting promoted into leadership roles. And the decision was made, no one was replacing me. In fact, 3 people were replacing me. And we just won't
Not
go there.
surprised at all.
but like picking those people, getting them up and running to really be in broader, more leadership roles, and all those years of developing that talent, it was really just harvesting that. But that was quite a journey,
Yeah.
and I was really given a send off that was amazing, that people don't always have the opportunity to have. But there are ways that one can do that when one doesn't have that blessing that I had. But 100 people reported to me, so my boss
Yeah.
wanted them to have the opportunity to say goodbye.
Yeah.
But there are ways to do that when you don't have as much control over the situation as I did. But also, if you do have people from a succession planning point of view, this is really something that you should be working on always, is thinking about those things, because sometimes you can't get a promotion because they don't know who's going to replace you. So I
True.
just want to throw that out there because those little bells were going off. And okay, so
Yeah.
what's the next one?
Okay, the next one is what leadership legacy am I leaving behind? And even this sense of, even if you're not in high leadership, no matter where you are in an organization, you have people that you interact with. You have people that report to you, or clients that you interact with. And so having that intention to think through what leadership legacy am I leaving behind, I think can be a really powerful moment, because you're probably leaving some unfinished business. Does that need to be resolved? Does it not need to be resolved? Are you leaving an imprint on the culture? Like that whole cultural component is vital. And so
That actually should be a question to when you're thinking about timing. Have I done what I need to do here?
yeah, Yeah,
Isn't that interesting? I never
that
even
is
thought about that as we were preparing for this, but I love that.
I hadn't either. I hadn't really thought about that sort of time component. Maybe we'll do another one. But 63% of employees regret not formally thanking mentors or team members at a departure. I mean, and so this sort of circles back around to that intentional moment of saying to people thank you, and what they meant to you, and maybe what you mean to them, and being able to just sort of honor these really momentous relationships, even if it's the client you connected with once a year.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
these matter. They matter.
Yeah.
Um,
I've
and
never
so
forgotten one of those things that was said to me when I left. Never forgotten it. She told
Yeah.
me I was her glass ceiling story. I will never forget that. That was 22 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
That's
kept all the cards from all the places, from people from all the places that I have left. And there are times that I go back to them, and
that's
just
so
read through
wonderful to
them.
keep them. I have something I didn't keep from that goodbye that I wish I had. They had a big poster and everyone signed it. And for some bizarre reason, I did not keep it when I moved. And I don't know why.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And I wish I had thought more about this sort of leadership legacy that I left behind, because there was a
Yes.
lot that I did within the church that was extremely forward moving, and I just had to come to terms with the fact that I no longer had control over some of those things. And
Yeah,
yet,
that's
even now,
hard.
18 months later, I'm sort of thinking through, ooh, if I had been more intentional about that moment, could things have looked differently? And only time will tell.
Yeah.
Time will tell. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So the third one is, again, much more about intentionality, your own intentionality, about what can you consciously carry forward. And I asked this question with all the layers, thinking of all the layers, because of course there's skills and training that you're going to take with you, and relationships. But what are some of the things that you really desperately want to take with you? Maybe style, maybe a culture, frameworks, all of these things that don't fit into, they don't fit into a box.
No.
You can't take them with you, and yet you can very much take them with you, even if you're moving across the country. These are things. What do I want to carry forward? Can be so helpful in not just how you leave, but what it looks like to step into what's next.
I love that. I love that so much.
And then the fourth, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to ask about the fourth, but you're on it. Go for it.
Fourth one. Okay, so the last one I had is, how do I design a strong first 90 days in the next role? And so inevitably you're going to have a next role. And yes, they're going to have onboarding procedures for you, because almost all jobs do. But what do you want for that to look like? What does it look like to sort of implement your leadership or style, or begin to sort of notice culture shifts that might need to happen? And you can do all of that within your first 90 days. But if you're still trying to figure out your email on day 90, like, it matters. And so there's some part of the new role that will need to help you with that. But there's also intentional parts that you can start with, even just something as simple as the expectations you have for yourself and how you will inhabit this role. And then if you have others that are reporting to you, what are those expectations you have for them? How do you set a tone for the way and style that you want to work? So that was the last one. How do I design a strong first 90 days in the next role?
And I'd love to kind of jump on that and dive a little deeper. Are you ready for it? So I actually do this with clients.
Really?
And where we talk about the first 30, 60, 90 days.
Yes.
And some of it is about the talking to the stakeholders, figuring, meeting with everyone that's reporting to you. If you have layers, then it's skip levels too, meaning the people that report to people who report to you.
Yeah.
And then getting in front, if it's a large organization, of all the people that report into you. But one of the things, a category we talk about, so I'm going to rattle off my categories, and I'd love to hear which ones you want to jump on.
Great.
So one is, unless it's your last job you're going to have in your career, this job is going to be moving you towards your next job. So the second you start the new job, we're thinking about the next job. So we're going to think about, how do we approach that? What are we working on with our mentors? What are we doing as far as external contacts? How can I represent the company externally in a way that adds value for my long-term plans? What projects within the company do I want to volunteer for? What can I take off my boss's plate that will move me towards my next job? All of that stuff is about your long game. And that's the coaching program that I have. But then, of course, there's the, in the context of our conversation, what lessons learned from my last job am I taking to this one, whether or not I have people reporting to me? And if I do have people reporting to me, what did I do to build the relationships I'm proud of with either cross-functional people or my direct reports? And how do I start that from day one this time?
Yeah.
So I'm going to be quiet now and hear some thoughts you might have on all that.
No, I love that. So the whole story of what this is based on is not, this whole conversation is not even just like me leaving the last job I had. It was actually, I told Wendy this, it's on this idea of the end. I went to a private school growing up, and the last day of school, so it was after the last day of school, we would come in for half a day. And we would do things like take our artwork home, clean up our desks. Like we would literally get out soap and water and what have you. And we called it leave taking. And it was the idea of, there are certain things that we take with us from the year, and there are certain things we leave. And how we do those things is just as important as doing them. And so I think even taking that idea of leave taking and applying it is, consciously, what do you want to take from your last job? And then how do you want to implement that going forward is such a powerful image. And then thinking, how do I set the tone here, knowing that I'm going to do this again? I'm going to end up leaving or moving positions or getting promoted or what have you. Like, we don't stay stagnant. We're constantly moving and changing. And so that ability to be really conscious and really intentional about, what am I leaving? What am I taking? And how am I doing that is such a tone setter for all the people around you. And anyway, we clearly don't talk about that enough in my former profession.
Taking notes.
Yes, right, I know. I mean, it's so good. Anyway, that it would be really beautiful just to sort of continue to continue this conversation of, what does it look like to leave and to start something new, and to do it with intention, to do it with that ability of saying, of gratitude, of sort of thanking that last position, even if you left under duress, but there were things that you learned, and sort of openness and curiosity about what you could learn and what you could take, and then sort of turning to what's next, grateful for this new opportunity, curious about what you're going to learn and who you're going to meet, and just such an open posture, even if you're leaving and you're not choosing to, or it's under some form of really not great situation. Like, there's a way to do it that can allow you to just sort of intentionally move without it having such heaviness, because it has heaviness. Anytime we leave has heaviness, and there's a way to have heaviness and to sort of acknowledge this sense of, oh, but I get this opportunity. I get to do this. And not everybody always gets the opportunity to leave, even if they want to leave.
No, they don't. No.
So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. So tell me, what practical tools exist for this moment?
Yeah. So you named one of them. You do one of them, that 30, 60, 90 day that 30, 60, 90-day plan for moving forward, I think is so tangible and helpful. And it's lovely that you help your clients with that. But going back, I think even taking a moment to write down your leadership narrative, like what has been your leadership narrative in your current job? And then how do you want to reflect on that? And what do you want to take with you into your next? So literally taking the time to sit and journal a little bit. Doesn't have to be a lot. You can bullet journal. You can just do a few sentences or paragraph, but even just taking the time, grab a Starbucks and just sit down and think through this leadership narrative. And then why you're moving on can be so powerful. Another practical tip is I already said this earlier, but that sense of expressing gratitude, like expressing gratitude intentionally to your team and your colleagues, even people that you may not have had great working relationships with, you learned from those interactions, and sort of taking a moment just to acknowledge the gratitude of the moment. And then coupled with that, identifying key stakeholders for closure conversations. And this goes back to what you were saying earlier, Wendy, the sense of this move isn't going to be my last move, more than likely. So I'm going to move at least another time, if not a few more times. So what stakeholders do I want to ensure I have closure conversations with, knowing that we're going to be colleagues in a different way in the next role or in the next few roles?
Yeah.
And then for that way to sort of think through consciously, what do I carry forward is, you say it all the time, maintaining those relationships, and especially on LinkedIn, especially connecting with people.
And by the way, I talk about LinkedIn for a reason, but the reality is that's just a tracking tool. LinkedIn is like a CRM to see who the people know. You need in-person relationships, and I think people have lost track of that. And I'm very active in creating that in Nashville in my community, but that is real life, actual face-to-face. Very, very, very important.
And I will say this, I think Zoom or whatever counts, like the online stuff counts. It matters to see someone's face, to see their surroundings and their facial expressions. Like,
yes,
these are how we build relationships, and we have since the beginning of time. But I also think taking a moment, again, sort of in that grab a Starbucks, sit down with your notebook, ask yourself a few questions and journal, is what are the best practices that you want to take from one role into a next? So even just being really not just conscious, not just thinking about it, but even being intentional about best practices, things that worked, things that didn't work, things you might like to try.
And it can be things other leaders at that company did, not necessarily things you did. It can also be things you did. But what did I learn? What do I want to take? That was this amazing moment. What do I want to take from that?
Yeah. And also, there was this not so amazing moment, but this is what I want to take from it. Like I've had some colleagues where there's one in particular that I'm thinking of, whom I loved, and went to her funeral, but I learned a lot of what I don't want to do from her. Not because what she did was wrong or bad or anything. It was just a style that was not mine. And so being able to even sort of recognize someone else's style and what you might want to take from that or not take intentionally is really, really powerful and helpful. So some of it is these really, really practical tools, 30, 60, 90-day onboarding, but thinking through and even writing it down. What do I want to take with me? What do I want to leave? And how do I want to do that can be really, really powerful.
Yes, I love that. I love that. So, what's next?
Yeah. So the way I'm thinking about what's next in this conversation is I actually, I'm using the language of grief around this. And I think that might even be too heavy, but we don't have a lot of different words for these moments where we're sort of experiencing loss,
Yeah.
but it's not like super major loss, but it is. And so I don't have good language around it. I don't know that we as a society do, but I do think there's this element of grief in it. How to acknowledge the loss that we've experienced and move forward.
Mhm.
And you said something earlier that I want to circle back to, and it is most of us who are leaving a position, especially a high level position, have psychiatrists or therapists on board, and those are amazing tools. And to not forget that one of the things that coaches do by and large is about looking forward and moving forward. And
Mhm.
so having a coach as a part of your team can be really powerful in these moments. And even if it's before you've left,
In
I
fact,
had
maybe ideally if it's before you left.
in truth, ideally, like I had a life coach working with me before I left the position, and it was actually working with her that I realized, oh, I can't do this anymore. I have to do something different. And I'm laughing about it, but I remember just the churning in it of even just sort of peeling the different layers out until I realized, oh, that's not what needs to happen. I've got to do something different. So I just want to sort of what's next of, I always go back to who's on your support team.
Yeah.
Who's on your team? We've got our family, we've got our friends, we've got our experts, we've got our GPs and what have you. But maybe where's a hole, and what might you need to help fill that hole? And so I think working with someone like Wendy to sort of practically move forward, or if there's some other things involved, working with someone like me to just even parse through, what does this grief look like? What does this loss look like? Like, I kind of wish I would have had me when I left a year and a half ago, because there was stuff I couldn't even name. Like,
Yeah.
it took a year before I could even name some of the stuff. And so even just having people in your corner who can give you the space to talk
Yes.
and peel away things is so important. And so that is just my little PSA for us of just what's next. Keep working on your support network, your support team. And if you are noticing that you would like to have more conversation with either of us, please reach out.
Yes.
And I think I did. I had a link or something.
You have a leadership exit checklist. Leave well, lead forward.
I have
And
a
there's the
checklist
link.
even. I was like, I've done this.
There's
And
even
so
a link.
I
Yes.
even have a link.
Yes, which means if you want the link, you're going to let us know and we will
And we
get
will get
you
it to
the link.
you.
Yes.
Because yeah, and you can
Yes.
take that checklist, grab yourself a Starbucks, you deserve it, or any other fancy coffee drink or tea that you like, and sit down and do it. What you're going to get out of it is way more than what you would get if you just sort of plow forward and move forward without any intentionality. So
Definitely. So, so, so important.
yeah.
Okay. And
Anything else, Wendy?
I think that's everything. We have plans to do something on the subject of transformation this
We do have.
coming.
It is. It's going to be in August, and
Yes.
let me check real quick to see if we have a date.
Yes.
Because I
Did we
got
pick a date? I think we did. I think it might be the 19th or the 26th if we went with Tuesday.
well, I don't have either of those on my
Okay.
calendar,
So we
but
haven't picked a date.
we haven't
So
picked a date. But I think the 19th or the 26th work.
okay,
Um,
and just so y'all know who are listening, we're going to kind of flip roles. Um but yet not. So Sally has done a lot of thinking about transformation in lives in her work, and she's going to ask me about some experience I've had in a transformation that will be celebrating 2 years on August 4th.
yes.
So it will definitely be don't miss. That
Don't
I know.
don't miss. You'll get
Yes.
the good stuff.
Yes, exactly. And I'm so excited because this is a space that I think Sally has a real calling for. And I have a story that will kind of allow her to highlight some of her magic. And I think it's going to be really wonderful.
Yes, well, and it'll be such an honor just to be in conversation with you about your journey and your transformation and all that has gone on, because you've worked really hard and you've had some really hard moments,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
transformation includes those really hard,
It
really tough
does.
moments. So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to that, and we'll get a date set
We
and
will.
information set.
Yes.
We really will, and we will let you all know, and we hope you will
Yeah.
join us.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next time.